welcome to Served Up. This podcast is where hospitality meets leadership and where we take an honest look at the business of beverage. I'm Bridget Albert. I've spent my career building cocktail programs, mentoring rising talent, judging competitions, and advocating for women in our industry. I'm joined by my co-host, Eric Heemer, one of only 5 people in the world to hold both the Master Sommelier and Master of Wine titles. His depth of knowledge and global perspective brings tremendous insight to every conversation. This is Served Up. Hey, y'all, it's Bridget here. It is my pleasure to welcome back to Served Up someone who has the most exciting perspectives in the world of hospitality today, Emma Sleight. As the head of content for the world's 50 best bars and the world's 50 best hotels, Emma has a front row seat to the very best our industry has to offer. She travels the globe discovering the people, places, and stories that are redefining excellence in hospitality, shining a spotlight on bars and hotels that inspire us all. But what makes Emma's work so impactful isn't just the rankings, it's her passion for the people behind them. So sit back, relax, grab yourself your favorite cocktail, and enjoy the show.
Emma, welcome to Served Up. It's great to have you back on the show. We'd love to hear a little bit about your background, where you're from, maybe some career highlights before joining the 50 Best team, just to give the audience a little feel for who Emma is, if you don't mind.
Sure thing. Well, first things first, thank you so much for having me back. I think it's been 2 years since I was on a podcast, so happy to return. Yeah, gosh, the least interesting subject is about me, so I'll try and keep it brief. But based in the UK, but like a lot of people at 50 Best, we spend most of our time living out of a suitcase and traveling an awful lot. But my background ranges from training in broadcast journalism, because I wanted to be a newsreader, and then going into travel writing, ending up doing recipe development, training as a sommelier, and then ultimately working brand side across content for a British heritage brand called M&S Marks and Spencer. But ultimately always been about telling stories, which is why it's so wonderful to work at 50 Best, which is so connected to so many incredible stories around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that the 2026 North America's 50 Best Bars list has been officially revealed, what are some of the biggest takeaways from this year's rankings?
Sure. I think one of the biggest takeaways is that North America continues to be incredibly dynamic and incredibly diverse when it comes to the drink scenes. Dynamic, certainly. So we saw a real mix in this year's list of really established, iconic stalwarts alongside some newer bars that are really making some waves, which really speaks to that depth of talent across the region. And it was also super exciting to see representation spread from a wider breadth of location and destination as well. So, I mean, of course, big hitters, Mexico City, New York, no denying their prowess and their power, but actually seeing those slightly smaller cocktail communities really pushing forwards and making an impression. We're talking like Houston with Bandista, Meseñas from Guadalajara, or our first ranking from a Nassau-based bar with Bon Vivant. So it's really exciting to see that shift and that dynamic change. And the main thing, not surprising, but wonderful to see, is how supportive everyone is of each other. So being in the room, and obviously it's a ranking, it goes up to number one. So there's always going to be a really healthy sense of competition. Of course there is. But what was really wonderful to see was how everyone was so excited about everyone else's accolades and achievements. And really, it just speaks to the community and that collaboration that they have with each other and how much they respect each other and they respect the craft. So that was wonderful.
Oh, it's so great. The 2026 list featured an incredible mix of established leaders, like you said, newer names. What does that balance really say about where the cocktail culture is right now in North America?
Sure. I think it definitely speaks to a diversification of that cocktail culture. So rather than bars a lot of the time now trying to emulate what, say, a New York bar was doing, now they're really coming into their own and really leaning into that sense of what is their identity? What do they want to do personally? What do they want their bar to stand for? And really leaning into that sense of individuality, which is really exciting to see. And I think even it's interesting to see the longevity aspect. So sustainability is never going to go anywhere, right? But it's now sustainability is the benchmark. It goes across everything, but that holistic sustainability when it comes to people as well. So really seeing it was really encouraging to see alumni from bars going on to open their own bars and do really well. So a good example of that would be the duo former Handshake bartenders, so Jose Olivas and David Rocha, going on to open Form and Matter in Mexico City, which had an incredible debut in at number 13. So it's really lovely to see that diversification, that breadth, that shift, and that next generation coming in through as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, Vancouver was your host city for the second consecutive year,
It
and we're
was.
curious, our audience would love to know what made Vancouver such a strong backdrop for this year's celebration.
Sure. There are so many things that go into where we choose as a destination. So, I mean, I won't bore your audience with it, but it goes across so many things like our ultimate goal at 50 Best is to shine a spotlight on destinations and to encourage people to travel. So we were super excited to explore Vancouver, to bring that community to Vancouver, and also to showcase the diversity of drinking destinations across that city because you've got such a diversity of bars in Vancouver from, super slick, beautiful hotel bars with botanists to baijiu drinking dens at Lao Wai to apothecary themed bars, if you can call it that, with Kiefer, who's really sort of trying to tap into that locale in Chinatown in Vancouver. So there's a real interesting diversity there that we wanted to showcase. And fundamentally, when we look to host in a city, it's a lot of different factors that go into it. From does it have the infrastructure to allow us to bring 1,000 odd people into the community? And then how can we work with the community most first and foremost and to showcase some of that locale, that visitor experience? And how can we encourage people not just to visit the bars that are on our list, but how can they explore more and see more of a destination? So we were super excited to be back in Vancouver, and the hospitality of the Canadians is not to be sniffed at. So it was a wonderful welcome.
Yeah, it's so true. People think it's cliche, but they truly are.
But it's true. Some cliches are true for a reason, right?
Absolutely. So, did you notice any broader themes or trends across the 2026 list, whether in hospitality style, cocktail programs, guest experience? What were your observations here?
Sure. I think it's more of a continuation of what we're seeing around the world as well. But you mentioned hospitality, and it's really interesting. And it's not unique to Vancouver, although obviously Canada, Vancouver, all of the Montreal, Toronto, all of the hotspots are obviously exemplary at what they do with hospitality. But hospitality's taken on a really sort of interesting edge in the sense that it's really personal. So I think bars nowadays are getting even more adept at realizing what does a person need when they walk through the door? Do they want to be spoken through every drink on the menu and understand where every ingredient has come from? Or actually, do they just want a quiet, safe space in a corner where they can gather themselves or have a personal experience in that space? So I think hospitality is not one simple thing. And if you ask anyone what hospitality is, they're going to give you a completely different answer. So I think it's been really interesting to see that evolution of hospitality. It's not always, while it can be for some people, is my water glass always full? And do you greet me when I walk through the door? It's not quite as simple as that anymore. And it's become a lot more nuanced. So seeing how bars interpret that for themselves is really interesting. And I think the continuation of really looking to what have we got here that makes us interesting that we can lean into, and through the liquid storytelling narrative of a drink or a menu, how can we express ourselves? So I mean, talking about Vancouver specifically and Botanist, what Grant Sini's done with the Raincouver. So taking that cliche potentially, and I also say this coming from a very rainy dwelling city person, how do you turn the sensation of a rainy city into a drink? and how do you make someone feel like they're getting a flavor of Vancouver when they're in your bar. So it's that sort of really interesting approach to personal hospitality and also just that leaning into that deeper cultural story.
Right,
Mm,
right. Hmm,
that's so
interesting.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah, the extended 51 to 100 continues to generate so much excitement. Why has it become such an important part of North America's Best Bars ecosystem?
I think it's because we fully acknowledge 50 is by design a finite number. It's a very small number and there are thousands of incredible bars around the world. So the introduction of the 51 to 100 allows us to shine that spotlight a little wider, a little more broadly, and to celebrate more destinations essentially and more establishments and the people behind them that are doing a great thing. So they might not have global recognition yet, but they're doing something truly memorable in the experiences across North America. And it just, as I said, gives us that chance to talk about more places and more people. And I think there was some incredible newcomers to the 51 to 100 list this year as well. I mean, and to talk again about that breadth of space and place that we're able to reward or recognize or celebrate. I mean, Identidad in San Juan coming in strong, winning the Campari One to Watch award. And then you've got Scotch Lodge in Portland, Realm of 52 Remedies, which is such a great bar name, by the way, in San Diego. So, really kind of showcasing that, look, those centers of excellence have existed way before 50 Best. We're not pretending that we've just discovered them. That's ridiculous. But it's lovely to be able to talk about them more and to be able to bring the 50 Best spotlight to them.
Absolutely. This year's rankings highlighted bars from such a wide range of cities and regions. Are you seeing the cocktail landscape become more geographically diverse across the continent?
I think so. I think so. And I think it's something we're not just seeing in North America as well. I used this example when I was talking about Asia's 50 best bars last year in 2025. So
Mhm.
the 2026 edition yet to be announced. But when we first launched that list back in 2016, about 70% of the bars that were ranked in there would be housed in what we call traditional cocktail capitals between Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo. And now the diversification has gone across the board. Same thing with smaller cocktail communities popping up in Bangalore, Kumamoto, Goa, across Jakarta. So I think it's really reflective across the world in the fact that people are traveling more, they're experiencing more, and people are setting up their own stalwarts in their communities and saying, this is what we do. So I think we'll continue to see that diversification.
Yeah, I think so too. Absolutely. And there's this growing emphasis on, local ingredients and culinary rooted storytelling and cocktails. Why do you think authenticity is resonating so strongly right now?
I think the more authentic an experience, it can be more memorable because there's something that resonates. When someone is telling someone else's story, you might not connect to it quite as strongly as if they're telling you their story or what they're doing. And I think bars that are really leaning into that ability to be independent and unapologetic about it are clearly doing quite well. The thing that immediately came to my mind was Balmaro in Mexico City. So you've got two brothers, Eduardo and Ricardo Nava, and their bar is an homage
Hmm.
to their grandfather Mauro. And there's only they could do that bar because it's their grandfather and his story and his love of aperitivo and Italianite sensibilities and design that have driven that bar. So it's something that is only unique to them and only they could tell that story. It's the same with bars like El Gaia El Tenero and Clecan, who have absolutely zero brands behind their bar. They exist to showcase small batch producers from across Mexico, and that story feels incredibly authentic to them and ownable to them. So I think people are increasingly seeking out those authentic experiences that they can only have in that particular place and they can't quite replicate themselves in another place or at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that story too, by the way. That's amazing. Just amazing. Can you talk about the North American bars? They consider just continue to earn global recognition. Why do you think
bars across the continent are doing just particularly well?
I think it's that balance between personal hospitality, but also innovation. I don't think you could ever accuse the North American bar scene of not be, of being afraid to be innovative or to challenge norms and to push boundaries. So whether that's through the ingredients we talked about, the design, the music, or the service, these experiences are starting to feel super distinctive and memorable. I
Mhm.
think, I mean, Allegory's win of the Siete Mysterious Best Cocktail menu, that whole menu is about narrative driven drinks that isn't afraid to lean into the political climate that it exists within. And even Sip and Guzzle, this year's #1 and North
Mhm.
America's the best bar in North America. I mean, it's a dual concept bar with a distinct Japanese sensibility in the middle of New York City,
Mhm.
and it's never compromised on that. And it's found a way of balancing Shingo's Japanese heritage and influence with Steve Schneider's incredibly precise service technique and Benya Brow, who I know has moved on from Sip and Guzzle now, but doing the same thing. So bringing elements of what they do best perfectly balanced together. And that's kind of, you can't replicate that. That's very much down to sticking with a concept and saying, this is what we are, this is
Yeah.
what we love to do, and we hope you like it, and being unapologetic about it. Because the thing about the lists is they're based on the subjective opinions of 300 plus voters throughout the
Mhm.
region. So they're meant to be discursive and dynamic. And it's refreshing to see bars just saying, well, like us or not, this is what we do and we love it.
I love
Mm.
that.
Emma, cocktail popularity comes and goes over the years, but when you were traveling and attending 50 Best Bars events over the past year, were there any particular cocktail trends that stood out the most to you?
Interesting.
Mm.
I mean, there are so many. It's difficult to talk about trends. I think what I'm finding interesting is the dedication to no and low in a different way. So, drinking habits, I mean, everyone talks about drinking habits changing, but bars, instead of just making their drinks an option to be no and low, actually dedicating parts of their menu to be completely newly reinvented drinks that
Mm.
happen to be alcohol free. But
Mhm.
the emphasis being on they're delicious, they have incredible craftsmanship behind them, and they happen to be alcohol free. So even if you're going out and you're not looking for a low or no alcohol experience, it doesn't matter because the drink is great. So I think that shift in mindset is really interesting to see how different people are interpreting it. And then I think for me, it's food becoming really important to bar goers now. So people not being afraid to get really excited about the snacks that come alongside the drinks, if it works for your bar and if it works for what you're delivering in the concept. Not every bar can also be a restaurant, and neither should it be. But
Right.
it's really interesting to see that sort of shift as well in that space.
Yeah, that's always sort of been the purview of wine and food pairing, but not pairing food with cocktails necessarily. So it's
Well,
nice.
I mean, it's
Nice to
interesting,
hear.
isn't it? Because if you think about the amount of culinary expertise it takes to craft a cocktail, then it's amazing that that hasn't become more of a thing. But yeah.
Well, I think it has. Now you've just introduced all of our listeners to this new trend, so thank you for that. And I wanted to ask a little bit more about this too, and we've sort of touched upon this, but it seems like the industry feels more collaborative than competitive in many ways. You know, a rising tide floats all ships, and all that. How have you seen bartenders and bar owners support each other across markets? Is that a trend? Is that a thing that you're seeing happening?
For sure. And I think it does extend beyond the cities that they're based within. I think there's always been a history of guest shifting or collabing. That's never going to change and it's never going to go away. But what's really interesting is to see how knowledge sharing has become so important to bars. So, technique sharing, innovation sharing, ingredient sharing, and being able to share those stories between bartenders is what we're really seeing in North America, certainly, but across the globe as well. I mean, the story of agave and how that has traveled in popularity across the globe. I mean, there's no denying where it comes from and how those bars are mastering it. But the generosity in seeing it come through in different spaces and different iterations is really interesting as well. So for me, it's seeing that collaboration extend beyond a 1 or 2 day guest shift? And how do we set up a tool showcase that you can share your learnings, I can share my learnings? Hey, do we want to get some of my junior team to come learn from your team? How do we want to share that knowledge? Because ultimately, if we don't all point towards the same future, we might not have an industry to support in the future. So I think it's been really interesting seeing that shift from, particularly with the super young generation, maybe 20, 30 years ago, seeing bartending as a hobby or something that you did for a few years, but now having incredible, inspiring industry icons showing you that this is a career that you can build and grow if we work together on making sure it stays sustainable.
Yeah, that's very inspiring. Thank you for that.
I love that. Are there any emerging cities or regions you think are just especially exciting to watch after seeing this year's results?
Gosh, I mean, I think everything's exciting, so it's probably the wrong question. Honestly, I think there are so many exciting things going on. It's exciting to see what Guadalajara is doing coming up. It's exciting to see what the Caribbean is doing and seeing how those island stories are being told through drinks. I mean, Library by the Sea is was in our ranking still this year, etc. So Grand Cayman, but having the entry of Nassau and seeing what those guys are doing, because it's a very different point of view to what we might have experienced before. And I think, God, I think New York's exciting at the moment. I do, because I think, look at what was interesting about the top five potentially is talking about, yes, I know number one was a New York based bar, of course, but looking at the two other New York bars in the top five, you've got Bar Snack and Schmuck, two very different bars, incredibly different concepts, but both of them opened in under 2 years, I believe. So seeing that impact and that energy, I mean, you can never accuse New York of not being energetic, but seeing that sort of fresh surge of energy and maybe diversification of energy is quite interesting to see. So, I mean, honestly, too many cities are exciting to even name, but I'm excited to just see what happens next year.
Emma, you touched upon this a little bit just a moment ago, but for younger hospitality professionals that may be listening to the podcast, what advice would you give to someone hoping to build a long-term career in this industry? And we just talked about the professionality and the noble aspects of building a career in mixology, but what advice might you have for someone
Mm.
particularly?
Oh, gosh, well, I mean, it goes across all industries probably. It's that you have it's helpful if you love it. So passion is always a wonderful thing to have. So find what particularly you are interested in, because there are so many aspects of bartending that people think it might just be a bar back and then you progress to a bartender, then a head bartender, and then you might open your own bar. But actually there are so many different routes now. And don't be afraid to ask about how can I diversify into those different areas of bar management. And you might end up never serving, but there might be an aspect of a bar that you could get into. You see bar teams now in housing marketing, social, creative, PR, all of that side too. So I think it's really about finding what you're passionate about and trying to connect with people that you would love to learn from. And hopefully they'll be generous enough to share their thoughts or their steer with you. And I think that sort of leans into the 50 Best Scholarship, which has just gone live for applicants around the world as well. So it's an all expenses paid accolade that one lucky bartender over the age of 21, not under, that would be crazy. So for one lucky bartender over the age of 21 with less than 3 years bartending experience, and there's an application form and a video, and we ask them to create a cocktail. And the ultimate winner will get to go and do a stage, do 2 internships at two world leading bars, so Line in Athens and Tres Monos in South America. So that's just a small thing that 50 Best is doing towards the future of bartending. But beyond that, it's you might not always know exactly what you want to do, but the only way you learn what you don't want to do is by trying it. So
That's very true. Well, thank you.
So
Very
true.
sage advice indeed. So, Emma, after unveiling the 2026 50 best list, what excites you most about where cocktail culture and hospitality are heading next? And I know you've sort of touched upon these subjects already, but just to bring it all to a point, what are your
sure.
thoughts here?
For me, it's the sense of creativity. It's that sense that you could do anything, you could create anything, you could use any ingredient, you could create something completely new. So I think for me, it's that I have no idea what's coming next for bars. Everyone predicts it, don't they? What's the flavor of the year or the month, or what's the color that everyone's trying to do? Or, hey, we're all getting bored of clarification. How can we move away from the rotovap? And I don't think that will happen, by the way. But yeah, so for me, it's that sense of anticipation of what's next. And the thing that always excites me the most is what stories can we speak to next? What people can we meet? What stories can we tell? What new destination can we help people discover in our own small way? So that will never stop being exciting to me.
Yes, indeed.
That
Well,
is
thank you for that.
fabulous. I want to thank you for spending time with Eric and I here on Served Up. And I'm just going to put out there, would you come back each and every year and give us updates?
I would love to. I always love doing it after the awards because then we can talk about who's ranked and it's much more fun.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. On behalf of Eric and myself, I just want to wish you some great health and, of course, peace. And, cheers to you and the good work that you are doing to, share that spotlight and really shining it on our industry. Cheers.
Thank you so much. Cheers to you.
Indeed. Thank you, Emma.
Thanks for listening. Served Up is brought to you by Southern Glazer's Wine and Spirits. Produced by Zunu.online. Music by We Killed the Lion can be found on Spotify. Make sure to subscribe to be notified of our future Served Up episodes. Cheers.